we stand on guard for thee. O Canada, we stand on guard for thee.
La news report, let the doors be open. Statements by members. Déclaration des députés. L'honorable député de...
The Honourable Member for Repentigny. It's hard to preserve our heritage in Quebec. For years, the city of Saguenay and the province of Quebec have been calling on Ottawa to add Arvida to the list of UNESCO World Heritage Sites. The first 270 houses in Arvida were built in just 135 days. It's a world-renowned example of urban planning and extraordinary conservation. It's helped the development of the Saguenay region with aluminum, which has played a key role in Canada-US industrial relations for over a century. UNESCO is calling on states to do more to highlight their industrial heritage and their 20th century architecture. Arvida fits the bill on both counts. So enough waffling, Mr. Speaker. When will the government add Arvida to the UNESCO World Heritage List?
The Honourable Member for Surrey-Newton.
Mr. Speaker, I want to recognize the outstanding young men and women of the 278 Cormorant Air Cadets, led by Commanding Officer Jagdeep Mason and Chairperson Rupinderjeet Thin. The program aims to help young people become good citizens and develop an interest in various activities of the Canadian Forces. These young Canadians are learning valuable life skills such as leadership and teamwork. They are giving back to the community, which makes Surrey-Newton and all of Canada a better place. All members, please join me in thanking the BC Provincial Committee of Air Cadet League of Canada and the 278 Cormorant Air Cadets, their parents and volunteers for their dedicated commitment, service and hard work in helping others.
Bravo! The Honourable Member for Calgary-Shepherd.
Mr. Speaker, I rise to mark the achievement of a great young Calgarian, Amber Harriman, from my riding of Calgary-Shepherd, who returned in March from Abu Dhabi, where she competed in the 2019 Special Olympics World Summer Games as part of Team Canada. Out of the 12 medals brought home by Calgarians, Amber earned 7 gold medals in gymnastics. I'd say she did very, very well. Did I mention this? These were her first World Games. She did it with her trademark hard work, a typical can-do Alberta attitude, and an extraordinary love for the sport. She describes gymnastics as challenging but beautiful and graceful, all at the same time. Athletes like Amber represent Alberta, their hometowns, with pride, and they show off our talented sports enthusiasts. I invite all members today to join me in congratulating Amber on this impressive achievement and for being an inspiration for other aspiring athletes in Alberta and across Canada. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Halifax.
Mr. Speaker, I rise today to congratulate Roger Sinclair from my beautiful riding of Halifax on his appointment as chair of the Conference for Advanced Life Underwriting, also known as CALU. Roger is a founder and partner at SBW Wealth Management and Employee Benefits and has spent 37 years providing practical financial advice to clients throughout Atlantic Canada and is recognized as a national industry leader. Mr. Sinclair is the first Nova Scotian to chair CALU. Over 480 CALU members from across Canada are in Ottawa this week for CALU's annual general meeting, where Mr. Sinclair was confirmed as the new chair just this morning. Congratulations, Roger, on this great achievement, and I look forward to working with you in Halifax to help Nova Scotians and all Canadians navigate advanced planning issues to benefit their futures.
Bravo. The Honourable Member for Timmins James Bay.
Tonight, Parliament will vote on Motion 174 to establish a National Suicide Prevention Action Plan. Canada is the only G7 country without a plan, and yet suicide cuts across all political, cultural, and economic spectrums. We lose 4,000 people every year to suicide, and each one of those deaths hit communities and families like a shockwave of grief. Quebec established a plan and dropped youth suicide by 50%. It is time the Parliament of Canada stepped up. I began this journey in the dark night of the northern suicide crisis, but I was inspired by the determination of young leaders like Randall Crowe of Treaty 9 who keep kicking at the darkness until it bleeds daylight. And since then, I met so many amazing activists like Jack Hicks and Courtney Traylor and Lynn Sutcliffe who are making hope a reality on the ground. It is time Parliament joined with them. I'm asking my colleagues to stand together tonight and vote for Motion 174 to establish a national suicide action plan. Thank you.
The honourable député d'Ottawa.
Honourable Member for Ottawa-Vanier. Mr. Speaker, yesterday we lost an inspiring philanthropist who was a champion for people with disabilities. Jean Vanier worked tirelessly to help the most vulnerable among us get a fair chance at achieving their potential.
After visiting a psychiatric hospital, Jean Vanier made it his mission to foster communities where those with developmental disabilities could participate fully, free of any barriers. Since founding l'Arche in 1964, the charity has established communities that house thousands of people with and without disabilities in more than 35 countries. Monsieur Vanier ensuite
Mr. Vanier continued to make many other contributions while working to make our world fairer and more inclusive for all. His legacy should inspire all Canadians to build a fairer and more welcoming world. We've undoubtedly lost an extraordinary leader. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member for Renfrew-Nipissing Pembroke.
The bad policy of the Liberal leader to go into massive debt on so-called social infrastructure, then controversial giveaways such as hundreds of millions of dollars to the China-controlled Asian Development Bank and money to the Hillary Clinton Foundation is really hitting home in Canada with his lack of climate change preparedness that his carbon tax is supposed to fund. All talk and no action. What taxpayers want is for responsible government to be investing in physical infrastructure like the main bridge into Garrison Petawawa, Canada's largest army base. That bridge was in danger of being swept away in the flood and had to be closed last week. The new Conservative government of Doug Ford has signed off on the Petawawa Bridge, where the old, tired Liberal Party of Ontario would not. The biggest scandal of the last 3.5 years has been the total neglect of Canada's physical infrastructure. Only by electing a responsible Conservative government that respects private property will homeowners see meaningful investment to protect roads and bridges.
The Honourable Member for La Prairie. Mr. Speaker, the Foundation Hélène Santen, an organization that works to promote arts and culture, will be celebrating its 30th anniversary. It was named for the first secretary of the city of Candiac, who retired after 30 years of service. The foundation's operations are based at the Maison Hélène Santen, formerly the Maison Melançon. Over the years, the venue, which serves Candiac and the surrounding areas, has hosted no less than 20 Saint-Jean-Baptiste parties, 28 art contests, 20 art exhibitions, 6 art symposiums, 40 classical music concerts, and 30 music and dinner events. Not to mention countless Christmas and Valentine's Day concerts. Today, Mr. Speaker, on behalf of all the residents of Candiac, I want to thank the president of the foundation, Ghislaine Nivos, and her team for all their work to promote arts and culture in the riding of La Prairie. Long live the Fondation Hélène Santen. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Member for Brampton South.
Speaker, I rise in the House today to recognize the work of a wonderful organization doing in Brampton, the Brampton Cricket League. The league promotes the game of cricket at the grassroots, and last month they celebrated their 10th anniversary. I'm proud of the work their president, Fraz Salim, Mukesh Rawat, and the entire team have done. Mr. Speaker, sport teaches us discipline, grace, and dignity, which is why I will always remain committed to supporting organizations such as the Brampton Cricket League, as they work tirelessly to spread sports in our community and engage youth. And today, the reason I'm wearing their jersey to promote cricket and their work, as the BCL is about to start their 2019 Summer Games session this weekend. My best wishes to all the players, the volunteers, the supporters, and the organization. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Congratulations to the Brampton Cricket League.
The honourable member for Foothills.
Speaker, the big promise
promises and sunny ways promised to Canadians in 2015 have led to 4 years of cloudy skies and broken promises by this Liberal government. Right. This Prime Minister claimed that he would strengthen the middle class, that he would improve Canada's presence on the world stage, and that he would run an open and transparent and ethical government. He has failed on each and every account. He has failed on pipelines, on taxes, on immigration, certainly on ethics and transparency, but also on trade. Canadians aren't buying what this Prime Minister is selling, and neither are our trusted trading partners around the world. Unfortunately, they also aren't buying our peas, our lentils, our wheat, our pork, or our canola. This Prime Minister promised that he would have the backs of our farmers. He has not. Our farmers have asked for a WTO challenge with China. He will not. This Prime Minister promised he would fight for jobs in our energy sector. He has not. Clearly, this Prime Minister is not as advertised. Canadians have had enough. In October, they'll change the channel.
Honourable member for Kitchener Centre.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Space, the final frontier. Thanks in part to Canada's own Captain Kirk, Professor Avery Broderick, a theoretical astrophysicist from the University of Waterloo, we are one step closer to where no one has gone before. Using the Event Horizon Telescope, a team of over 200 scientists were finally able to photograph a black hole. Black holes are so dense and have such strong gravity that anything that crosses the threshold is sucked in, never to return. The discovery allows us to test long-held theories about black holes and their effects on surrounding space. Professor Broderick declares we truly are standing at the threshold of a new era of astrophysics. May the team behind this discovery live long and prosper. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Saint-Boniface-Saint-Vital. Mr. Speaker.
Week, I rise today to pay special tribute to the exceptional work of Indigenous nurses who provide care to all Canadians from coast to coast to coast, and to celebrate Indigenous Nurses Day. The over 9,700 strong and skilled Indigenous nurses are invaluable in the promotion, the development, and practice of Indigenous health and nursing due to their unique perspective and understanding of the specific needs of Indigenous communities. They are able to combine traditional Indigenous practices with Western medical practices. These nurses know all too well the barriers that Indigenous people face when accessing health care, and are perfectly placed to help tear these barriers down. Please help me in welcoming the Canadian Indigenous Nursing Association to Parliament Hill and in congratulating them on the celebration of their 45th year. Bravo!
The Honourable Member for Montmagny-Lys-Lake et Montgascon-Rivière-du-Loup. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. After 4 deficit budgets and no plan to end this irresponsible debt, the Liberals are continuing to show that they can't govern the country. Yesterday, the Auditor General blamed the government for its inability to manage the immigrant crisis at the border, and also deplored the lack of resources given to the RCMP. The government can't adequately meet the needs of millions of Canadians who simply want information about how to pay their taxes or get their old age security that they're entitled to. Quebecers have asked for us to simplify their lives by having a single tax return form, but the Liberals said no. Trade disputes are blocking our exports to China, and the Liberals aren't taking action. But when it comes to have political interference in 2 different files, well, there's no problem. They'll do anything possible to find a solution. Mr. Speaker, Canadians deserve much better. The Honourable Member for Vimy. Mr. Speaker, today is World Ovarian Cancer Day. It's a sad day for those who have lost a mother, daughter, or a loved one to this silent killer. And a disease that is often diagnosed at an advanced stage. Ovarian cancer research is essential, and our government has taken action. In Budget 2019, $10 million was allocated to ovarian cancer research. Last Sunday, I participated at an event organized by people in my riding on the subject, and I want to thank participants and donors for their remarkable work. I also want to thank everyone who, one way or another, has supported cancer research. Thank you for being a leading light. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member for North Island Powell River.
Mr. Speaker, a woman from my riding has made the national news for her dedication to the young people in the community. They call her the Waving Granny. Tinny Davidson has been spreading joy in the town of Comox. Every morning, Tinny is at the window and waving to all Highland Secondary School students who walk by. She became such a part of the students' lives that they would worry when they didn't see her when she was away on vacation. After 11 years of sharing smiles and making people happy, she will sadly be moving away. Her impact was so positive that to honor her, 400 students from the school showed up on her lawn recently to give her handmade hearts, blow her a kiss, and wave a final goodbye. Tinny is a female leader in the community who followed her calling to spread joy and happiness among students in the Comox Valley. Women like Tinny deserve to be recognized for their loving hearts and ability to share the most important commodity we have, kindness. My riding is a better place because of Tinny, and I want to thank her and honor her here today.
The honourable member for Aurora, Oak Ridges, Richmond Hill.
Mr. Speaker, this week the Macdonald-Laurier Institute issued a scathing assessment of this Liberal government's record, stating the Prime Minister holds the security of Canadian citizens and the country's sovereignty in near total disregard. This is the most severe of criticisms, for there's no greater responsibility of a Prime Minister than to protect its citizens and uphold the sovereignty of the nation. The Liberals tell us that Canada is back, but a disastrous trip to India, an escalating diplomatic and trade crisis with China, a worse deal on NAFTA compounded by punishing national security tariffs show that this Prime Minister has devastated our reputation on the world stage. Exactly. Canada has never been more alone, and this Prime Minister is not as advertised. Canada needs a strong Prime Minister who understands the complexity of these turbulent times, is honest about the threats we face, and will vigorously defend the sovereignty of our nation. And that would be the current leader of the opposition, a Conservative Prime Minister in 2019.
Order. The honourable member for Brampton West.
Mr. Speaker, as a registered nurse myself, it is an honor to recognize the leadership role nurses play in our society during National Nurses Week. The theme for this year is Nurses, a voice to lead, health for all. According to International Council of Nurses, this theme reflects that every nurse has a story, and every story has the potential to improve the lives of individuals and communities. Mr. Speaker, I couldn't agree more. I've seen this firsthand during my experiences as a nurse and during my visits to Brampton Civic Hospital in our community. At a time when our healthcare is under attack through the cuts imposed by Doug Ford and the Conservatives, our government will continue to stand together with our nurses and healthcare providers to ensure healthy communities for all Canadians. I encourage everyone in joining me in thanking the nurses in our community for their tireless service, advocacy, and leadership. Thank you.
Oral questions, questions orales. The honourable leader of the opposition.
Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister tried to interfere in a shipbuilding contract. And when he got caught, he tried to destroy the reputation and career of the person who stood up to him. We've seen this before, and it's a dangerous pattern with this government. Right. Why is it that anyone who says no to this Prime Minister ends up with a target on their back?
The Honourable Minister of Justice.
Mr. Speaker, the prosecution in question was handled by the Public Prosecution Service of Canada, which operates independently from the Department of Justice and independently from my office. My office had no role whatsoever in the decision to seek a stay of proceedings. The decision belongs to the Director of Public Prosecutions alone. And the Director of Public Prosecutions has stated in February and repeated today that there was no contact or influence from outside the PPSC on either the initial decision to prosecute or the decision to stay the charge.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
But the lawyer for Mark Norman was quite clear that this government did impede this investigation by withholding important documents and facts. When it looked like the truth was going to try to come out in the SNC Lavalin corruption scandal, the Prime Minister shut down the investigations. And when it looked like the truth in this scandal was going to come out, the Prime Minister tried to prevent a fair trial by withholding evidence and using delay tactics. So what is in those documents that this Prime Minister is so afraid of?
The Honourable Minister of Justice.
Mr. Speaker, as I've stated a number of times in this House, the government has met all of its obligations with respect to third-party records applications during the course of the trial. All documents from priority individuals identified by the defense in February had already been provided to the court. Mr. Speaker, as I've said, it's the Public Prosecution Service of Canada that has undertaken the evaluation of the evidence of this case and the prosecution of this trial, and it's their decision, Mr. Speaker, and their decision alone to stay the proceedings.
Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Mr. Speaker, the Privy Council office undertook an investigation which led to nothing. Despite this, the Prime Minister is looking for a scapegoat, and he's chosen a Vice Admiral. Now, he even said that this case would go before the courts before the RCMP laid charges.
Justice.
The Honourable Minister, Mr. Speaker, as I said already in this House, the government has complied with all regulations in this case. The prosecution was led by the PPSC. It was their decision to go forward with the investigation. They went forward with the prosecution, and it was their decision to stay proceedings. The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Minister doesn't have the fortitude to answer these questions himself. Long before any charges were laid against Vice Admiral Norman, the Prime Minister told the media that it would inevitably wind up before the courts. Today, Vice Admiral Norman's lawyer described those comments as, quote, an extraordinary event. How did the Prime Minister know that this would end up in court before any charges were made, and why won't he stand up and answer these questions for himself?
The Honourable Minister of Justice.
Monsieur le Président, la directrice.
Mr. Speaker, the director of the PPSC of Canada said in February that there was no influence exerted in this case, and to say the contrary is to call into question our judicial system. We're very proud that the system worked the way it should.
Speaker, Vice Admiral Mark Norman had the honor and integrity to face allegations against him himself. Exactly. The Prime Minister doesn't have the same fortitude or backbone. Let's look at what Mark Norman's lawyer did say. She said, quote, there are times when you agree with what happens in a court and at times you don't, and that's fine. But what you don't do is you don't put your finger and try to weigh in on the scales of justice. That is not what should be happening. That's exactly what this government did in trying to block and obstruct evidence coming before that court. What is in those documents that this Prime Minister is so afraid of?
The Honourable Minister of Justice.
Mr. Speaker, as I've said, there was no role played by Privy Council in this file. This was under the jurisdiction of the PPSC, and the director herself has already said last February, and she reiterated today, I gave no instruction, no guidelines or directives with anyone in my office with respect to pursuing or suspending proceedings.
Mr. Speaker, Canadians wake up daily to alarming news about mass extinctions and catastrophic climate change. Yet Liberals are planning to steamroll ahead with a Trans Mountain pipeline, despite the NEB not fully considering the impact to climate, despite toxic tanker traffic and threats to the coastline, and despite Indigenous concerns. Better choices will lead to better results. So will the Prime Minister stop spending billions on pipelines and instead invest in the clean energy economy of the future?
The Honourable Minister of Environment.
Mr. Speaker, I was at the G7 meeting in France where we talked about how we need to take more action on climate, how we need to take action on nature, and how you need to do it in an affordable way, creating good jobs. That's exactly what we're doing. We're putting a price on pollution, giving them money back, such that a family of 4 in Ontario receives $307. We're tackling our biodiversity challenge, protecting nature by doubling the amount of nature that we protect in Canada. We know that we need to tackle climate change. We need to protect more nature, and we need to do it in a way that creates good jobs and grows our economy.
The Honourable Member for Burnaby South. Mr. Speaker, despite the risks to our coast, marine life and ecosystems, despite consultations with Indigenous communities who don't want us to go forward, despite the fact that an appellate court found that the Liberals had not done due diligence, the government is going forward with Trans Mountain expansion. Indigenous and coastal communities are clear. They don't want this pipeline. Why won't the Liberals listen?
Employment.
Mr. Speaker, we're following the guidance from the Federal Court of Appeal to move this process forward in the right way through meaningful consultations, and we're making progress every day. The NEB's report, completed on time, marked an important milestone in this process. And on Indigenous consultations, our teams are on the ground and they're engaged in a meaningful two-way dialogue. On this side of the House, we're working each day to get this right. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Burnaby South. Vice Admiral Norman's trial has been a debacle since the beginning. People deserve the truth around whether or not the PMO interfered in a judicial process. Now, we saw it with SNC. The Liberals have no respect for the independence of our justice system. Will the Liberals initiate an independent investigation into the credible allegations of interference by the PMO in the Norman case? The Honourable Minister of Justice. Mr. Speaker, as I've said on several occasions now, the government played no role in the prosecution of Vice Admiral Norman. The PMO did not. This was under the sole jurisdiction of the director of the PPSC, and she said today, as she said in February, that there was no influence from the outside in the trial.
Well, that runs contrary to what we've heard from Mark Norman's defense team. They've raised serious concerns about Scott Bryson, about the Liberals' cozy relation with the Irving's companies, and about political interference directly from the Prime Minister's office. Mr. Speaker, sunshine is the best disinfectant. Canadians deserve the truth. So why is the Prime Minister refusing to hold an independent investigation into the Liberals' handling of this case?
Honourable Minister of Justice.
Mr. Speaker, the Director of Public Prosecutions stated today, as she stated in February, that there was no contact or influence, including political influence, from outside the PPSC at either the step of the initial decision to prosecute or the decision to stay the charge. Mr. Speaker, on this side of the House, we believe in our judicial institutions. We believe in our prosecutorial institutions, unlike the previous government, which had a record of interfering with the courts.
Order. The Honourable Member for Milton.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This was said today in the press. I have an important story to tell that Canadians will want and need to hear. We have had documents withheld, we've had witnesses silenced, and we have seen a personal attack on the reputation of a revered public servant. And I'm not talking about SNC-Lavalin. What I am talking about is the trial of Admiral Mark Norman. Will the Prime Minister do the right thing and apologize to Captain?
The Honourable Order. The Honourable Minister of National Defence. Order.
Mr. Speaker, as the Public Prosecution Service of Canada confirmed today, every decision was made completely independently. And let me quote from that statement. No other factors were considered in this decision, nor was there any contact or influence from outside the PPSC, including political influence, in either the initial decision to prosecute Mr. Norman or in the decision to stay the charge today. Any accusations otherwise, Mr. Speaker, are absurd.
Honourable member for Milton.
What is absurd is the fact that these cabinet ministers are being sent out with such flimsy lines that actually do not address the matter. The matter is simply put this. Admiral Mark Norman had to spend the last 2.5 years scraping and fighting and defending himself while this government sat back and let it happen. They didn't produce the documents they were supposed to. And in fact, the Prime Minister on 2 occasions said that this matter would end up in court even before the RCMP laid the charge. What are they afraid of?
The Honourable Minister of National Defence.
Mr. Speaker, based on the decision today, the charge against Vice Admiral Norman has been stayed. Based on today's decision, my Deputy Minister has reviewed the policy in place regarding Vice Admiral Norman's request to have his legal fees paid, of course, relates to this case. I agree with this, Mr. Speaker, and have authorized it. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Honorable Député.
The Honourable Member for Richmond-Athabasca. Mr. Speaker, what a coincidence. After we learned that the former Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Foreign Affairs was going to testify against his government, we see, again, as in the SNC-Lavalin affair, the government's political interference. What is the strategy of the Prime Minister's advisors? To tarnish Vice Admiral Norman's reputation? What is the Prime Minister trying to hide from Canadians? The Honourable Minister of Justice. Mr. Speaker, the Director of Public Prosecutions said, as she said in February, there was no outside influence either in taking the decision to prosecute nor during the trial, and indeed not in the decision to stay proceedings. So, Mr. Speaker, it's clear there was no influence exerted and the system worked as it should. The Honourable Member for Richmond-Athabasca. The Prime Minister said, even before the RCMP laid charges, that this matter will probably end up in court. After having tried to destroy the reputation of the former Attorney General in SNC-Lavalin, this government has tried to besmirch the reputation of Vice Admiral Norman, a man of integrity who opposed this Liberal government's interference in our justice system. Vice Admiral Norman spent $500,000 out of pocket for his defense.
Mr. Speaker, as I stated, first one, I encourage the member to actually read the statement from the Public Prosecution Service of Canada. And I'll quote again. No other factors were considered in this decision, nor was there any contact or influence from outside the PPSC, including political influence, in either the initial decision to prosecute Mr. Norman or in the decision to stay the charge today, Mr. Speaker. And when it comes to legal fees, Mr. Speaker, I've authorized for this to occur. Thank you.
The Honourable Member for Aurora, Oak Ridges, Richmond Hill.
Mr. Speaker, service to country is an honourable profession, and to be willing to give of one's life in the defence of the nation should be revered. But what this government has done to Admiral Mark Norman undermines the values of our nation that every person who serves in uniform is willing to fight to defend. The use of code words and the withholding of documents to tip the scales of justice is clear political interference. Why does this Prime Minister think that it's acceptable to behave in this manner?
The Honourable Minister of Justice.
Speaker, as I've stated a number of times over the course of the last couple of weeks, this government and my department in particular fulfilled all of its obligations with respect to documents requested in the proceedings, Mr. Speaker. All the priority documents identified in the month of February had been given over at the point of trial. Mr. Speaker, this prosecution was directed by the Prosecution Service of Canada. It runs independent of the government and of my department, Mr. Speaker. It proved today that the system works.
Honourable Member, order, order, order. The honourable member for Aurora, Oak Ridges, Richmond Hill.
Mr. Speaker, this Prime Minister is unwilling to admit that politically interfering against a man whose only desire was to serve Canada honourably was wrong. There are many members on the other side, including in Cabinet, who serve this country in uniform. We swore an oath to serve and defend this nation and the values for which it stands. Putting service ahead of self takes courage. When will they find the courage to stand for what's right and honor their oath to serve this country ahead of the leader of the Liberal Party?
Order. The Honourable Minister of National Defence. Order.
Now she's back. Mr. Speaker, I'm thankful for all the members who serve our Canadian Armed Forces, our veterans as well, including all members in this House, and should not compare one service over another, regardless of party affiliation, Mr. Speaker, and we honor that, Mr. Speaker. And our defense policy makes sure that it's fully funded, and we're going to be focusing on looking after our people. We have increased our defense spending by 70%, Mr. Speaker, and putting a premium on looking after them and their families. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Honourable member for Timmins James Bay.
The government's witch hunt against Vice Admiral Norman has collapsed, but has exposed the ruthlessness of a Prime Minister who was willing to destroy the career of a naval officer who served his nation with distinction. Why? Because he raised questions about a lucrative pork barrel deal on an important naval deal. So what we've seen is the shocking lengths this Prime Minister will go to interfere in the legal system to help cronies of the Liberal Party, but to attempt to destroy an admiral's career is way over the line. I'm asking the Prime Minister to stand in this House today to apologize to Vice Admiral Norman and his family.
The Honourable Minister of Justice.
Mr. Speaker, as the honourable member well knows, the RCMP, which did the initial investigation, operates independently of government. The Public Prosecution Service, which looks at the evidence gathered by the RCMP and decides whether to lay charges, which proceeds with the prosecution if it decides to proceed, and then in this case decides to stay the proceedings, also operates independently of government, independently of my office, independently of the Prime Minister's office. And the Director of the Public Prosecution Service stated that today, as she stated in February, that there was no outside...
The Honourable Member for Timmins James Bay.
Oh, he left out one important point. It was a star Liberal MP, a former decorated general, who stepped forward and was willing to testify against this Prime Minister and his own government over this harassment of Admiral Norman. So this is much bigger than defending the cronyism of the Liberal Party of Canada, which the Attorney General has been defending as of late. This is about the rule of law in Canada. So why is the Prime Minister refusing to stand up, to apologize to Canadians, to explain himself, and to launch an independent investigation into the behavior of his government?
The Honourable Minister of Justice. Order.
Mr. Speaker, the only thing I agree with the Honourable Member's statement is that this is about the rule of law in Canada. And indeed, the rule of law in Canada, Mr. Speaker, functioned very well. From the RCMP beginning with its investigation, through the Public Prosecution Service acting independently and making decisions based on the evidence as it came through. Mr. Speaker, this Public Prosecution Service operates independently of government. It operated independently of government. It made appropriate decisions. Mr. Speaker, it proves that the rule of law is alive and well in Canada. The system works well.
The Honourable Member for Chilliwack Hope.
Vice Admiral Mark Norman served our country with honour and distinction, but the Prime Minister and these Liberals tried to destroy him. They attacked him personally and professionally, and they even tried to bankrupt him and his family. Now the Prime Minister needs to start to make amends, and that starts by issuing an apology. So will the Prime Minister finally apologize for all that he's done to Vice Admiral Mark Norman?
Honourable Minister of National Defence.
Mr. Speaker, I encourage the member to actually read the statement on the Public Service of Canada, which confirmed today that every decision made was completely independent. And I'll have to quote again no other factors were considered in this decision, including political influence, Mr. Speaker, and any accusations otherwise are absurd. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The order, the honourable member for Chilliwack Hope.
It is unbelievable that this Prime Minister can't bring himself to apologize for what he's done to Vice Admiral Norman, a man who has served our country with honor for decades. The Prime Minister seems to have no problem apologizing for the actions of others, but when it comes to his own bad conduct, sorry seems to be the hardest word. Why did this Prime Minister have no problem apologizing to a convicted terrorist, Omer Khadr, but can't bring himself to apologize to Vice Admiral Norman for the damage he's done to his career, his family, and his reputation?
Order. The Honourable Minister of Justice.
Mr. Speaker, I obviously reject the premise of the honourable member's question. This country is all about the rule of law, Mr. Speaker. This country is about great institutions like the RCMP, like the Public Prosecution Service, which was a good thing, Mr. Speaker, started by the previous Conservative government in order to give independence to the prosecutorial decisions and the governance of prosecution proceedings in Canada. Mr. Speaker, that system worked well today. Don't just believe me, you can believe the lawyer for Admiral Norman, who said the rule of law worked.
Honorable. Alors.
Order, please. The Honourable Member for Charlebourg, Haute-Saint-Charles. Mr. Speaker, a few days after the member for Orleans said that he would testify against his own government, the Prime Minister put an end to the proceedings against the Vice Admiral. If the Liberals had provided the documents requested by Vice Admiral Norman's team, this would have been settled very quickly. But the Liberals allowed the reputation of the Vice Admiral to be called into question and his career destroyed. Will the Prime Minister apologize? The Minister of Justice. Mr. Speaker, as I said in French and English, the court has acquitted itself of complied with its obligations before the court with respect to these documents. The court and the PPSC works independently of the government. This shows that the rule of law is healthy, doing very well in Canada. The Honourable Member, Mr. Speaker, I would remind the Minister of Justice that the lawyer for Vice Admiral Norman said there was political interference. So this story isn't over. Will the Prime Minister first apologize to the Vice Admiral Norman, the Minister of Justice? Mr. Speaker, I dismiss out of hand the allegations just made. We have fulfilled all our obligations and worked in cooperation with the courts to produce documents. As far as the decisions taken by the Director of Public Prosecutions, these were independent decisions. She said today, as she said in February, there was no political influence.
The Prime Minister is creating two classes of refugees in Bill C-97 to pander to the right. Facing backlash, the government emailed Liberal MPs saying that no asylum seekers would be at risk. The Canadian Association of Refugee Lawyers and Amnesty International were clear. That is not true. The Liberals are desperate for a fix, but experts were explicit. There is no fix. Anyone pretending the Liberal proposal is the same as the independent work of the IRB is fooling themselves. Will the Prime Minister do what thousands of Canadians are demanding and withdraw these dangerous provisions?
The Honourable Minister of Border Security.
Let me be very clear that our government remains committed to a fair and compassionate refugee system. And Mr. Speaker, as the UNHCR has stated, that we are upholding our international and domestic legal obligations, as all claimants will still have access to a robust oral hearing subject to appeal, whereby they will receive Canada's protection if they are found to be at risk. And as the UNHCR went on to attest, the PRA that we are providing provides the same objectives as the IRB's process and confirms the same degree of refugee protection.
The Honourable Member for Sherbrooke. Mr. Speaker, yesterday morning the Auditor General was scathing in his criticism of the Liberal government on the handling of the Web Giants file. The government has said repeatedly that it is waiting for the international community to respond to the growth in the digital economy. Excuses, excuses, excuses. But still, this problem has not been dealt with. Funny thing, out of 60 countries surveyed by the OECD, Canada is one of the only 2 to have done nothing. Worse still, they have no intention of doing anything. Mr. Speaker, what excuse will the PM use this time for doing nothing?
The Honourable Minister of Public Safety.
The various remedies available to all Western governments are under active consideration now through the forums provided by the Five Eyes Alliance and by the G7 security ministers. Various potential approaches have been advanced by a number of those countries. There will be international discussions following later this spring. It's obviously clear that those who purvey dangerous material on the internet need to assume responsibility for their behavior.
The Honourable Member for Bonavista Burin Trinity.
Mr. Speaker, rural communities across Canada play an important role in our national economy and are a special part of the Canadian identity and vibrancy. As the MP for Bonavista Burin Trinity, a large rural riding, I see firsthand the unique sorts of issues faced by rural communities and the need for a coordinated, specific plan to address them. Can the Minister for Rural Economic Development please give this House an update on the work being undertaken to develop a national rural economic development strategy?
Honourable Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I want to thank my honourable colleague from Bonavista Burin Trinity for his question. Our government understands that rural communities face unique challenges requiring unique solutions. Since my appointment as Minister of Rural Economic Development, I've visited rural communities across the country to hear directly from Canadians, including in my honourable colleague's riding. Mr. Speaker, we've heard from stakeholder groups, local governments, small business owners, and the feedback we've been receiving has been immensely helpful in getting the message out, and we'll make sure we help form our national economic development strategy. I look forward to continuing the work to develop this strategy and bringing it back to the House soon and share this opportunities with all Canadians.
The Honourable Member for Chicoutimi-Le-Fjord. Mr. Speaker, in February 2018, the Prime Minister announced that the Norman matter would go before the courts before the RCMP even laid charges. In the run-up to the elections, charges have been withdrawn after the MP for Orleans stated he would be testifying on behalf of Vice Admiral Norman. And we're being told this is just a coincidence. The government never wanted to provide the documents that were necessary for Vice Admiral Norman's defense. What is he hiding? The Honourable Minister of Justice. I will say it again, Mr. Speaker. The decision to stay the proceedings was made by the director of the PPSC alone. And as I have said several times, we cooperated fully with the court for the production of documents that were required for the trial. And the director said herself this morning, as she said in February, that there was no political interference in this case. The Honourable Member for Chicoutimi-Le-Fjord. Mr. Speaker, Vice Admiral Norman has always put national interest first. The Asterix was a resounding success in military procurement, delivered on time and on budget by Davy. The Liberal government, on the other hand, put their political and partisan interests first, above the national interests, which are to provide adequate equipment on time to our military. Why did the government try to block that contract to Davy? The Honourable Minister of Public Procurement.
We are laser focused on delivering for our men and women in the military and in the Coast Guard. We have delivered a fully costed defense policy and a defense investment plan that's going to allow research and development into the future. We've launched the Future Fight jet procurement for the replacement of 88 fighter jets. We have delivery of our first interim jet. We have the first large vessels in the water built under the National Shipbuilding Strategy, including the first offshore fishery and science vessel, the first Arctic offshore patrol ship. We're building 2 more. We cut steel on the 4th last week. We purchased fixed-wing search and rescue aircraft. We have awarded...
The honourable member for Selkirk, Interlake, Eastman.
Mr. Speaker, it was the political interference by this Liberal government that was a catalyst for this whole Norman show trial. Now, this Liberal government obstructed the legal process, sat on the evidence Vice Admiral Norman needed to defend his case. They dragged his good name through the mud, drove him into near bankruptcy, and refused to turn over evidence to the courts. And no surprise, the case against Vice Admiral Norman has been dropped. Now, Canadians want to know, what is the Prime Minister so desperate to hide?
The Honourable Minister of Justice.
Mr. Speaker, I disagree with every single premise in that question.
That's right.
Mr. Speaker, a great institution, the RCMP, led the investigation, produced evidence which it gave over to the prosecution service. Mr. Speaker, the prosecution service, which operates independently from government, evaluated that evidence and decided to move ahead with laying charges in this case, and then went through the proceedings. During the proceedings, Mr. Speaker, the Department of Justice cooperated with the court for the production of third-party document requests. Mr. Speaker, that's the...
Honourable member for Selkirk, Interlake, Eastman.
Well, the minister should actually listen to the press release by Marie Hennon today, and Norman's defense actually said that they waited for 6 months since he made the request for documents and still haven't showed up. Now, the Prime Minister, Kelsey, stomped all over the Admiral who served this country with distinction. The Prime Minister maliciously accused Mark Norman of a crime he never committed, then blocked him from getting any legal assistance. The Prime Minister dragged his feet, disclosing evidence for the case, and sent completely blacked out documents. What are in these documents? What is the Prime Minister covering up?
Hey, hey. The Honourable Minister of Public Safety.
The honourable gentleman should know that all of the procedures here conducted by the Office of the Public Prosecutor and by the RCMP are totally independent of the Government of Canada. The whole structure is designed to keep it independent so that the decisions that are made on the basis of proper legal considerations, and all of those considerations are weighed carefully in court before a judge. The matter was entirely without political influence, and that's what the prosecutor said today.
That's right. Order. The Honourable Member for Windsor-Tecumseh.
Mr. Speaker, first I'd like to congratulate Unifor and GM Canada for finding a solution to save hundreds of jobs in Oshawa. And while this is a good start, I'm concerned with another Ottawa announcement. In my writing, Ford Canada will eliminate the 3rd shift of the Essex engine plant come October 1st. Workers are bearing the brunt of Liberal inaction. For years, the NDP has been calling for a national auto strategy. How many job losses will it take before the Liberals start a working group and get us a national auto strategy?
The Honourable Minister of Innovation.
Mr. Speaker, we're very encouraged to see the positive news in Oshawa with regards to the GM workers. But more importantly, the member opposite raises the questions of jobs. Since we formed government in 2015, 11,500 new jobs have been created in the automotive sector. Compare that to the Conservatives in their first 2 years, 20,000 jobs were lost before we even hit the recession. And that's because we've been able to attract $6 billion worth of investments in the automotive sector. That's our track record, and we look forward to campaigning on that.
The Honourable Member for Berthier-Masquinongé. Mr. Speaker, poultry producers are here in Ottawa, and I had an opportunity to meet with them yesterday. I can tell you they are pretty worried. The lack of control over imports is compromising our supply management system, and it is a critical pillar. Agricultural producers were sacrificed by this government during recent free trade negotiations. An NDP government would never have allowed these breaches in the supply management system. Mr. Speaker, will the federal government finally commit to controlling imports and thus safeguard the future of our farmers and the supply management system. The Honourable Minister of Agriculture. Mr. Speaker, no later than this midday, I was with the Poultry Producers Association. I had an opportunity to have yet another good discussion with this group to reassure them. Our government has committed to all supply managed sectors. We made a firm commitment in the budget 2019, and we're working very hard to be able to implement those commitments over the next few months. These associations can count on this government.
Renfrew, Nipissing, Pembroke.
Mr. Speaker, we've seen this Prime Minister fight veterans in court before. He says they're asking for more than he can give. But when it comes to fighting people who are standing up against them, then money is no object. How many taxpayers' dollars has this Prime Minister wasted trying to destroy Vice Admiral Mark Norman?
Good question. The Honourable Minister of Veterans Affairs.
Mr. Speaker, it's kind of rich to have the honourable colleague mention Veterans Affairs and what her government did with Veterans Affairs. Cut 1,000 jobs. Cut agencies that work on pension benefits. We as a government allocated $10 billion of new money. Allocated a pension for life. We have and will continue to take care of veterans in this country, Mr. Speaker.
Order. The Honourable Member for Durham.
Mr. Speaker, the Royal Canadian Navy is our senior service, and today their most senior officer, Mark Norman, was completely vindicated. The Crown said there was no reasonable prospect of conviction. There was never a reasonable prospect of convicting Mark Norman, Mr. Speaker. He never should have been removed from command. He never should have faced a criminal charge, and he never should have been the fall guy for Liberal corruption. Can this government start making it right? And can the Defence Minister today commit to reinstate Mark Norman as the Vice Chief of Defence Staff?
Order. I encourage members of the court to be judicious with their language. The Honourable Minister of National Defence. Order.
Mr. Speaker, as we stated before, no other factors were considered in this decision, and including no political influence, Mr. Speaker. As I had mentioned today to the media, that the General Vance, Vice Admiral Norman's immediate superior, will be having discussions. Once those discussions are had, I'll have the appropriate military advice to make the appropriate decisions. Thank you.
Honourable Member for Durham.
Mr. Speaker, today the Liberals are talking about independence. Let's review. Scott Bryson independently manipulated a $700 million contract. The Prime Minister's office independently hired James Cudmore, who revealed the leak. The Prime Minister independently
Order. Order. The Honourable Member for Durham has the floor. Order.
The Liberals are a little touchy today, Mr. Speaker. Scott Bryson independently tried to stop a naval contract. The reporter that revealed that, James Cudmore, was independently hired by the PMO. The PMO independently had Michael Wernick look into the leaks and found 73 people knew. The Prime Minister independently said Mark Norman would be charged.
Honourable Minister of Justice.
Mr. Speaker, as I have stated a number of times in this House today, there are a number of outstanding institutions who did their jobs properly to protect the rule of law in Canada. Mr. Speaker, the RCMP conducted an investigation which produced evidence. Mr. Speaker, the prosecution service took that evidence, assessed it, decided to lay charges, decided to proceed with the prosecution. and then decided to stay it, all within their independent powers as our prosecution service. Mr. Speaker, our government cooperated in producing thousands of documents, Mr. Speaker, on third-party record applications.
Been called worse. The honourable member for Kitchener South Hespeler.
Mr. Speaker, tourism is a key economic driver in Waterloo region. But for 10 years, the Conservatives failed to understand that.
That's right.
Harper made cuts to Destination Canada's budget, and now Doug Ford is cutting the province's tourism budget. It is very clear that the tourism sector is not a priority for these Conservatives. Can the Minister of Tourism, Official Languages, and La Francophonie reassure the hard-working people of the tourism sector what our government is doing to support them better?
The Honourable Minister.
Merci, Monsieur le Président.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
South Hespeler for his important question and hard work. Last year, Ontario welcomed almost 10 million international visitors, contributing to $7 billion to the economy. The Conservatives made it clear that 700,000 hard-working Ontarians in the tourism sector are not a priority for them. Our Liberal government understands the growth in the sector, and that's why we invested $60 million in our budget. How can the Conservatives say, on the one hand, that Ontario is open for business, while meanwhile they're cutting tourism?
I'm hearing unparliamentary language from the honourable member for Battle River Crowfoot. You should know that that's not permitted in the House, and I invite him now to apologize for his remark. You can apologize. Thank the honourable member. The honourable member for Leeds, Grenville, Thousand Islands, and Rideau Lakes.
Thanks, Mr. Speaker. The government seems concerned and confused about their jurisdiction, but this Prime Minister's actions in the Vice Admiral Norman trial are the exact same as the SNC-Lavalin scandal. He tried to interfere in an ongoing criminal trial. The fact that he was unsuccessful twice doesn't change the fact that he tried to put his fingers on the scales of justice. Thankfully, our independent justice system resisted his attempt to politically interfere with it. It's corrupt, it's shameful, and it has no place in our democracy. When will the Prime Minister apologize for his continuous attempts to pervert the course of justice?
You said you. Honourable Minister of Justice, order.
Mr. Speaker, the rule of law in Canada in the course of justice is doing quite well today. Thank you very much. Mr. Speaker, the Prosecution Service of Canada, acting independently from government, as the Director said, acting independently of influence, including political influence of any kind, made a decision to stay a proceeding after having led a process, after having started that process based on evidence given by another great institution, the RCMP. Mr. Speaker, the rule of law is functioning as it should in Canada. Justice has been served, and I'm quite proud of our system, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member for Rimouski-Nejet-Témiscouata-Les-Basques. Mr. Speaker, yesterday the leader of the Conservative Party announced that he would move the Canadian Embassy from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem if he became Prime Minister. This policy is not only irresponsible, but it would also run counter to international law, UN Security Council resolutions, and above all, common sense for anyone who wants peace in the region. The Conservatives' plan appears to be simply to copy Donald Trump's international policy, and that's more than troubling for stability in the Middle East. Will the Liberals commit to condemn this plan, knowing that Jerusalem East has been internationally recognized as occupied Palestinian territory? The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Foreign Affairs.
Best friend of Israel and a friend to the Palestinian people. Canada's long-standing position is that the status of Jerusalem can be resolved only as part of a general settlement of the Palestinian-Israeli dispute. That's been a long-standing policy of consecutive governments, and we remain strongly committed to the goal of a comprehensive, just, and lasting peace in the Middle East, including the creation of a Palestinian state living side by side in peace and security with Israel, which we celebrate today on its Day of Independence.
Honourable member for Vaughan Woodbridge.
Monsieur le Président, our government is committed to supporting the Canadian agri-food processing industry, and under the Canadian Agricultural Partnership Program, I joined the Minister of Agriculture last week in announcing an $8.5 million investment in Vaughan-based and family-owned organic food processor, Riverside Natural Foods. Est-ce que le ministre de l'Agriculture...
Can the Minister of Agriculture tell us how these investments will support trade, innovation in agriculture, and create good jobs for the middle class? Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. The Honourable Minister. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I'd like to thank my colleague from Vaughan for having accompanied me to Riverside National Food.
Whose healthy snacks are enjoyed in over 30 countries. A business that has provided markets for Canadian agriculture products. Our investment under the Agri-Innovate program will help Riverside install its new first-in-Canada robotic equipment, customize and automate production, and develop many healthy new snack foods. Through Budget 2019, we are investing $100 million to drive innovation in the food processing industry. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Honourable Member for Barrie Innisfil.
There are still so many unanswered questions with respect to the Vice Admiral Mark Norman case. What was the level of political interference by Liberal MPs, the Cabinet, and the Prime Minister to try and change the supply ship contract? What was the Prime Minister hiding when he fought in court to deny the defence access to key documents? The Prime Minister said on 2 occasions that the Admiral Norman case would end up in court before charges were laid. How did he know that? But the Prime Minister can start by answering this question. What was he trying to hide, and who was he protecting?
The Honourable Minister of Justice.
Mr. Speaker, as I've said a number of times today, the Department of Justice cooperated with the court and fulfilled its obligations for the production of third-party documents. Thousands of documents, Mr. Speaker. Yes, it took time, but we fulfilled our obligation to the court. Mr. Speaker, the system of justice in Canada is working. The Public Prosecution Service made an independent decision to stay proceedings based on the evidence they had in front of them. They took the initial decision to proceed with the case based on evidence raised by another institution.
The Honourable Member for Joliette. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The government announced $3.9 billion in compensation for supply-managed producers in the budget. But the money is not in the financial tables of the budget, not in an annex, and not in the votes. There is no budget line for compensation, nor is there any new program. It is also not in any of the department's budgets. If there is money to compensate our producers, will the Minister of Finance tell us exactly where that money is, how much it is, and above all, how we can approve it in this House before the elections? The Honourable Minister of Agriculture. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker, and I'd like to reassure my colleague and all supply-managed producers that our government committed to support them. The budget says clearly that there are $3.9 billion committed, including $2.4 billion for those producers. Our commitment is just as firm for processors. Mr. Speaker, I would just ask you to wait for a few weeks for the details of this matter. Thank you. The Honourable Member for Longueuil-Saint-Laurent is rising on a point of order.
Yes, Mr. Speaker, I hope that you'll find unanimous consent in the House for the following motion. That the House of Commons, understand the concerns of Quebec about the budget situation at Telefilm Canada, B, recognize that it's thanks to Telefilm Canada and its operations that artists like Xavier Dolan were able to achieve international success. C, notice that the industry was indignant over the cuts and order the government to act quickly to guarantee that the future budgets will not be threatened. Does the honourable member have the unanimous consent? No, there is no unanimous consent.
3:10 p.m. pursuant to order made on Tuesday, May 7, 2019, the House will now proceed to the taking of the deferred recorded division on the motion of Mr. Poilievre relating to the business of supply. Calling the members.